Some people think public transportation gives them a stage to perform their daily drama. I never expected to meet one of those people on my Tuesday morning commute, and I certainly never expected she'd try to turn my life into her personal theater production. But Karen had other plans, and those plans were about to cost her more than she could possibly imagine. It started on an ordinary October morning on the New York City subway. I was heading to a breakfast meeting downtown, reviewing contracts on my tablet. The car was moderately crowded, the usual mix of professionals, students, and early shift workers. Everything was normal until the train lurched to a sudden, screaming stop between stations. The emergency brake. Someone had pulled it. Before we get into the chaos that followed, if you're enjoying this story of subway justice, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to Karen Eat World. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this entitled passenger gets exactly what she deserves. Ring that notification bell because the revenge coming is absolutely legendary. As the train sat in the dark tunnel, confused murmurs filled the car. Then I heard her. A woman's voice, shrill and self-important, cutting through the confusion like nails on a chalkboard. Excuse me. Excuse me. I needed this train to stop right now because that man was sitting in the priority seating and I deserved that seat. I looked up to see a woman in her late 40s, dressed in designer athleisure wear, pointing dramatically at an elderly man who looked absolutely bewildered. She had her hand still on the emergency brake lever, looking proud of herself. "Ma'am," a younger passenger said carefully, "you can't pull the emergency brake for that. That's for actual emergencies." Karen's face flushed red. "This is an emergency. I have a condition. I need to sit down, and the rules say priority seating. I know my rights." The elderly man immediately offered to move, but Karen wasn't done with her performance. "No. Everyone needs to understand that rules matter. I pulled that brake to teach all of you a lesson about respecting priority seating." The train operator's voice crackled over the intercom, asking if there was a medical emergency. Karen grabbed the intercom and announced, "Yes. There's an emergency. People aren't following the priority seating rules." I watched as the operator explained that transit officers would be boarding at the next station. Karen seemed thrilled by this, apparently believing she'd summoned reinforcements to vindicate her crusade. The rest of us exchanged exhausted glances as the train slowly crawled forward. When we reached the station 15 minutes later, 2 Metropolitan Transportation Authority officers boarded. Karen immediately rushed over to them, gesturing wildly. "Officers. Thank goodness. I had to pull the emergency brake because people weren't respecting the priority seating. I need you to issue citations immediately." The older officer looked at her with the exhausted patience of someone who'd seen everything. "Ma'am, did you pull the emergency brake?" "Yes. I just told you that. Because someone was in my seat." "Ma'am, pulling the emergency brake without a genuine emergency is illegal. It's a violation of New York State penal law. I need to see your identification." Karen's confident expression faltered. "What? No. I'm the victim here. I'm reporting them." She pointed at various random passengers. The officer remained calm. "Ma'am, you've just admitted to pulling the emergency brake for a non-emergency. You've delayed this train, which affects thousands of commuters across multiple lines. I need your ID now." As Karen sputtered protests, I stepped forward. "Officer, I'm an attorney. I witnessed the entire incident and I'm willing to provide a statement." I handed him my card, which identified me as a partner at one of Manhattan's larger litigation firms. The officer nodded appreciatively. Several other passengers also volunteered as witnesses. Karen was getting increasingly agitated, her voice rising to a screech. "You're all ganging up on me. This is discrimination. I have rights. I'll sue all of you." What Karen didn't know, couldn't have known, was that my specialty wasn't just any kind of law. I focused on transportation litigation and municipal code enforcement. I'd actually helped draft recommendations for strengthening penalties for transit disruptions after a series of incidents the previous year. I knew exactly what she was facing. The officers issued her a citation and released her with a court date. As we all finally continued our commute, Karen spent the ride loudly calling someone, probably her husband, ranting about how she was going to sue the MTA, the officers, and probably several innocent bystanders for good measure. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, I was back on the same subway line, same time, and there she was. Karen spotted me immediately and marched over. You're that lawyer who sided with them. You ruined everything. They gave me a $500 fine. $500 for trying to sit down. Actually, I said calmly, it was for illegally pulling the emergency brake and delaying the train. Her face turned purple. I'm going to make your life miserable. I ride this train every day, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. And she did. For the next 2 weeks, every time Karen saw me on the subway, she'd start her performance. She'd announce loudly to the car that I was a corrupt lawyer who attacked disabled people. She'd try to turn other passengers against me. She'd take photos of me on her phone, claiming she was documenting harassment. Most passengers ignored her or looked embarrassed for her. But Karen was relentless. She started showing up at my regular station at my usual time, clearly adjusting her schedule to maximize our encounters. She'd follow me through the turnstiles, narrating her grievances to anyone within earshot. That's her. That's the lawyer who got me arrested. She probably gets kickbacks from the MTA. She hates people with disabilities. She's probably not even a real lawyer. I tried changing my route. I tried different times. But Manhattan is only so big, and somehow Karen kept finding me. She'd gotten it into her head that I was personally responsible for her legal troubles, and she was going to make me pay. The breaking point came 3 weeks after the original incident. I was running late for a court appearance, speed walking through the station, when Karen appeared out of nowhere and physically blocked my path. "You're not going anywhere until you apologize," she screamed. When I tried to step around her, she grabbed my briefcase. I said apologize. A transit officer intervened, and Karen reluctantly let go, but not before announcing that she was filing a formal complaint against me with the Bar Association for harassment. I realized then that trying to avoid her wasn't working. It was time for a different approach. That evening, I did something I rarely do. I called in a favor. My college roommate, Jennifer, was now a deputy director at the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. We'd stayed close over the years, and she'd been following my Karen situation with amused horror. "Jen," I said, "remember when you said if I ever needed anything to just ask?" "Oh no," she laughed. "What are you planning?" I explained the situation in detail, including Karen's ongoing harassment. "I want to know everything about her case. Public record stuff. And I want to know if there's anything we can do, legally, to make her understand that actions have consequences." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "Let me look into this. Call you tomorrow." When she called back, she was almost gleeful. "Oh, this is good. So, your friend Karen? She didn't just get a citation. She missed her first court date." "She what?" "She missed it. Apparently, she thought she could just ignore it or that it would go away. So now there's a bench warrant for failure to appear. But it gets better." I pulled up her record. This wasn't her first incident. She's been cited 3 times in the past 2 years for various subway disturbances. Nothing major enough for arrest, but documented. My legal mind started working. What was the original charge exactly? Reckless endangerment in the 2nd degree, a Class A misdemeanor. Pulling an emergency brake without cause falls under that. With her history and the failure to appear, the DA's office is taking it seriously. But here's the interesting part. She lives in Westchester and commutes in Daly. That's MTA Metro North territory too. And you know what Metro North just implemented? Tell me. A new enhanced penalty system for repeat offenders. Anyone with multiple violations can face a transit ban pending resolution of charges. It's mostly been used for fare evasion, but it technically applies to any transit-related offense. I felt a smile forming. How would one go about requesting such a ban? Well, as a witness to ongoing harassment related to a transit incident, you'd have standing to file a formal complaint. Especially since she's now interfering with other passengers' use of the system, namely you. And given that there's an active warrant, it would be pretty easy to argue she's a continued risk to transit operations and public safety. We talked for another hour, planning every detail. By the time we hung up, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The next morning, I filed a comprehensive complaint with the MTA, documenting every incident of Karen's harassment, including witness statements from other regular commuters I'd tracked down through my firm's investigators. I attached photos she'd posted on social media where she bragged about confronting corrupt lawyers on the subway, complete with pictures of me taken without consent. I also filed a separate complaint about ongoing harassment and intimidation related to my role as a witness in a criminal proceeding. That one went to the district attorney's office. Then I waited. It took 3 days. I was honestly surprised Karen lasted that long without another incident. But on Thursday morning, as I approached the turnstile at Grand Central, I saw her. She saw me too, and her face lit up with malicious glee. She started marching toward me, phone already out and recording. There she is. The corrupt lawyer. Everyone watch as I expose. Karen Williams? 2 transit officers appeared beside her. She spun around, annoyed at the interruption. What? I'm busy. Ma'am, we need you to come with us. There's an active warrant for your arrest. The color drained from her face. What? No. I paid that fine online. No, ma'am. Our records show you failed to appear for your court date. Please come with us. Karen's voice rose to a shriek. This is her fault. She pointed at me. She's doing this. She's harassing me. I want her arrested too. One of the officers looked at me and I recognized him from the original incident. He gave me a slight nod. Actually, ma'am, we're also here regarding multiple complaints of harassment and transit disruption. You're being served with a temporary exclusion order from all MTA services pending resolution of your criminal case. What? The officer handed her paperwork. This order prohibits you from using any MTA-operated transit, including subway, bus, and Metro North rail services, for a period of 90 days, subject to extension pending your court hearings. Violation of this order is a separate offense. Karen's hand shook as she looked at the papers. You can't do this. I need the train to get to work. This is illegal. I'll sue. You have the right to request a hearing to contest the order. The process is explained in your paperwork. Now, we need you to come with us regarding the active warrant. As they led her away, still screaming threats and accusations, she turned back to look at me. Our eyes met, and I saw the exact moment comprehension dawned. She realized that I hadn't just reported her. I'd systematically documented everything, built a legal case, and used her own actions to get her banned from the very transit system she'd tried to weaponize. You, she whispered, her face going from red to white. You did this. You planned this whole thing. I didn't say a word. I just smiled slightly and swiped through the turnstile. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Over the next week, I learned through Jennifer that Karen had indeed been arrested on the warrant, spent a night in jail because she couldn't make bail until morning, and was now facing enhanced charges due to the additional harassment complaints. Her court date was set for 6 weeks out. I also learned that Karen had been frantically trying to appeal the transit ban, claiming it was unconstitutional and discriminatory. Her argument was that she needed transit to get to her job at a medical billing company in Midtown Manhattan. That's when I had my second brilliant idea. Through my firm's extensive network, I reached out to a few contacts. It turned out that Karen's employer had been having issues with her for months. She'd been filing constant HR complaints against coworkers, claiming discrimination over everything from someone microwaving fish to someone wearing too much perfume. She'd threatened legal action against the company at least 4 times. I didn't even have to do much. I simply ensured that Karen's employer was made aware, through appropriate legal channels, that she was facing criminal charges for reckless endangerment and harassment, and that these incidents had occurred during her normal commute hours, which could potentially create liability issues if she had represented herself as acting on behalf of the company in any capacity. I also may have mentioned, completely factually, that she'd been posting about these incidents on social media using a profile that listed her employer in her bio, and that she'd made statements about planning to sue various parties, which could be construed as practicing law without a license. 3 days later, Karen was fired. The official reason was ongoing performance issues and violation of social media policy, but we all knew what had really happened. Her employer had decided she was more liability than she was worth. Which meant Karen now had no job and no way to commute into the city for interviews even if she found one. But I still wasn't satisfied. Karen had made my life miserable for weeks, had harassed me publicly, had tried to damage my professional reputation. She deserved to understand exactly how thoroughly she'd destroyed her own life. So I did something petty. Something I'm not entirely proud of, but something that felt absolutely necessary. I used my firm's resources to track down every single social media post Karen had made about the incident. Every rant, every threat, every photo she'd taken of me without permission. I compiled them into a comprehensive document, had it reviewed by our privacy and cyber harassment team, and filed a civil lawsuit against her for defamation, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The amount I sued for? $500,000. Not because I expected to get it, though I might, but because I knew it would haunt her. Every background check, every Google search of her name, would now turn up a federal lawsuit for $500,000. But here's where it gets really good. Karen, in her infinite wisdom, decided to represent herself. She filed a motion to dismiss that was so poorly written, so full of sovereign citizen-style legal nonsense, that it actually made the rounds in legal circles as an example of what not to do. She cited laws that didn't exist, made arguments that contradicted each other, and at one point appeared to argue that the subway was international waters and therefore outside of New York's jurisdiction. The judge denied her motion with what I can only describe as barely concealed amusement. Discovery was even better. Karen was required to turn over all her social media posts, all her communications about the incident, everything. What she produced was a treasure trove of self-incrimination. Posts where she bragged about pulling the emergency brake. Messages to friends where she outlined her plans to make that bitch lawyer's life hell. Photos she'd taken of not just me, but dozens of other commuters over the months, with caption after caption of complaints and threats. My attorneys had a field day. We expanded the lawsuit to include stalking and willful violation of privacy statutes. Meanwhile, Karen's criminal case was proceeding. She'd hired a lawyer this time, a discount attorney she'd found online who mostly handled traffic tickets. He was wildly out of his depth with a reckless endangerment charge. At her hearing, the prosecutor laid out everything. The original incident. The failure to appear. The ongoing harassment. The violation of the transit ban, because of course Karen had violated it. She'd been caught trying to sneak onto a subway train using a different entrance just 2 weeks after being banned. The judge was not amused. Ms. Williams, you understand that you've turned what could have been a simple fine into a criminal record, a civil lawsuit, and now additional charges? Karen, unable to help herself, launched into a rant. Your Honor, I'm the victim here. That lawyer, she's been orchestrating this whole thing. She has connections with the MTA. This is all a conspiracy because I dared to stand up for my rights as a disabled passenger. The judge looked at her attorney. Is your client claiming a disability? The attorney, looking exhausted, nodded. She has claimed to have an unspecified condition requiring priority seating, Your Honor. Does she have documentation of this disability? Silence. Ms. Williams, Do you have any medical documentation of a disability that would require priority seating? Karen fumbled with her bag. I don't need documentation. It's private. You can't ask me that. Actually, Ms. Williams, when you use disability as a justification for criminal conduct and as a defense in court, I absolutely can ask for documentation. Do you have any? More silence. The judge sighed. I'm going to order a psychiatric evaluation before sentencing. In the meantime, the transit ban is extended to 1 year. Bail is set at $5,000. Next case. Karen's face went through about 15 different colors. But the absolute best part, the chef's kiss of this entire situation, came 2 months later. My civil case against Karen went to mediation. Her attorney, the same discount lawyer, showed up looking defeated before we even started. Karen showed up looking smug, apparently believing she was about to negotiate her way out of everything. The mediator started with the standard speech about finding common ground. Then my attorney laid out our case. Every post. Every threat. Every photo. Every violation. The medical records I'd had to provide showing anxiety and stress from her stalking. The professional impact statements from colleagues who'd witnessed her harassment. The mediator turned to Karen. Ms. Williams, I have to tell you, this is one of the most well-documented harassment cases I've seen. The defense is strongly recommending you settle. Karen crossed her arms. I'm not paying her anything. She's the one who should be paying me. My attorney smiled. Then we'll see you in court. Where everything we've discussed will become public record. Where every employer who Googles your name will find it. Where your face will be associated with stalking and harassment forever. I watched the realization slowly dawn on Karen's face. She'd thought she was untouchable. She'd thought her righteous anger and her interpretation of the rules would protect her. She'd never considered that someone might actually fight back, and fight back with resources and knowledge she couldn't match. How much, she finally whispered. Full amount of the lawsuit plus legal fees. $573,000. Or we go to trial and ask for more. Karen's lawyer whispered urgently to her. Her face was ashen. I don't have that kind of money. Then we'll take your house, my attorney said pleasantly. The lien alone will destroy your credit for decades. We eventually settled for $150,000, paid out over time, plus a permanent restraining order, plus a public apology posted to all her social media accounts. Karen didn't have the money, but her parents did, and they were apparently so humiliated by their daughter's behavior that they paid immediately just to make it all go away. The criminal case resolved shortly after. Karen pleaded guilty to reckless endangerment and harassment charges. She received 2 years probation, a permanent ban from MTA services for 5 years, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory anger management classes. 6 months after our final encounter on the subway platform, I was having coffee near Grand Central when I saw her. Karen was standing outside the station, staring at the entrance like it was the gates of paradise she could no longer enter. She was dressed in a cheap business suit, clearly on her way to or from some job, and she looked exhausted. She must have felt me watching because she turned. Our eyes met across the plaza. I raised my coffee cup in a small salute. The look on her face was everything I'd hoped for. Not just anger, though that was there. But comprehension. Complete and total understanding of what her actions had cost her. She'd pulled an emergency brake to prove a point about rules, and I'd used every rule, every law, every procedural tool available to systematically dismantle her life. She'd wanted to teach people a lesson about respecting the rules. Instead, she'd learned that some people know the rules better than she ever could, and they know exactly how to use them. Karen turned away and walked toward the street, probably heading to whatever bus or expensive rideshare she now had to use for her commute. She never looked back. And me? I finished my coffee, walked down into the subway station I'd been temporarily afraid of, and caught my train. My train. On my schedule. Without anyone to harass me or make me feel unsafe. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about being cruel. It's about being thorough. If you enjoyed watching Karen learn that harassing a transportation lawyer on the subway is a really bad life choice, make sure you've hit that like button and subscribe to Karen Eat World. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in this situation, and don't forget to check out our other videos where entitled people get exactly what they deserve. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when a Karen meets someone who actually knows how to play the game. See you in the next one.